Hey guys, it's Cloudy. How are you all? Today we're doing another cozy, informal vlog where we talk about some tropes that come up in dramas. This trope that we're going to be talking about today comes up in not only Korean dramas and Chinese dramas, but also in some anime series as well. But specifically for the sake of this vlog, we're only going to be talking about it in the context of Korean dramas and also maybe historical period dramas. As you can already tell from the title, we're going to be talking about the dramatic drama wrist grab. What is the K-drama wrist grab? The K-drama wrist grab comes up in very emotionally charged moments. Usually two characters, the main characters, are having a very dramatic conversation. It's a very heated and intense conversation, either about their feelings or about some sort of misunderstanding. And one character turns to leave because they don't want to hear it anymore. They're taking themselves out of the conversation. But the other character, they're really trying to get their point across. In order to stop the first character from leaving, he will grab her wrist. Usually her wrist is like this way. He'll grab her wrist, stop her from leaving, and pull her towards him, either to confront her again or to make a point known, or to romantically forward the relationship and the scene. Why are they grabbing the wrist? Why is it the wrist and no other place? Well, for starters, in most countries and cultures, if you grab anywhere else other than the wrist or hand, it can be incredibly offensive. You're not going to grab their shoulders because that's kind of like you're going in for a hug. You don't want to grab below the waist because that's just wildly inappropriate. So the wrist kind of remains as a sort of safe zone for there to be some sort of like physical interaction between these two characters. And in a lot of cases, if they grab the person's hand, grabbing the person's hand can be too much of an overly romantic gesture. If the scene takes place in the early part of the drama, perhaps the story is not ready to delve into the actual romantic part yet. So grabbing the wrist does remain as a sort of neutral zone. And because dramas are overly dramatic and not realistic at all, the wrist grab seems to be a very visually striking movement that can lead to a dramatic pause in the conversation, which leads to background music and slow motion cuts inserted into the scene for dramatic effect. Another point I want to make is that the wrist grab is not always overly romantic or emotional. Sometimes one character is literally about to like speed walk into moving traffic, and in order to save their life, the other character will grab them and pull them back. Rather than focusing on the physical contact, we should look towards the intention of the scene and what the story writers are trying to establish. Of course, it is very wildly inappropriate to get into someone's physical boundaries if they're uncomfortable with it. So a lot of it has to do with context. How does the main character feel in the moment, and what are the main character's backstories or their personal view towards physical contact? There have been scenes in K-dramas that are very realistic where the female protagonist or female character that's being grabbed will point that fact out and say that it's literal harassment to be grabbing someone's wrist. So dramas are aware that physical contact is not always the appropriate approach for every scene. Also, I would like to make a note for wrist grabs in period dramas. When it comes to period dramas or historical dramas, the social context is very different, the etiquette is very different, and the cultural norms are very different. Any sort of physical contact in period dramas can lead to very dramatic consequences. For example, if you are a character of lower social standing and you decide to grab the wrist or touch someone who's a noble or from the royal family, that can literally lead to your death. Or they'll literally just like chop your hands off in the middle of the street, and there's like no consequences for it because of the social status differences. A lot of times in period dramas, if there is any sort of physical contact, it indicates a huge romantic advancement in the relationship between the characters. So instead of the wrist grab, instead of a skin-to-skin sort of contact, an alternative to the Korean drama wrist grab is the sleeve grab. They will grab their sleeve or grab the little part of their robe or their cloak, and that will get the character's attention without overstepping the physical contact boundaries. Obviously, in period dramas, because the social norm is so different, any sort of hugging or kissing basically means you guys are like married. And a lot of times if you were to touch a female person without her consent, her reputation might be ruined just because you made that advancement towards her. That's why there's a lot of like supervision around women in period dramas, and usually they have escorts or chaperones or bodyguards if they're walking around on their own. And like I said before, if there is any contact between the female and male character, it's pretty much implied that they're definitely going to get together because they've already broken that boundary and there's a sense of intimacy between them. In period dramas, even if you see the characters spend the night together in their underclothes, even if there's no explicit scenes that are edited into the series, someone could be pregnant like 3 episodes later. So it's very conservatively shown, and a lot of the intimacy is implied rather than overtly done. Culturally, I think the wrist grab is sort of an embellishment of the physical gestures that we see in Korean dating culture. When I was living in Korea and I was observing the dating culture around me, I was seeing couples on the street a lot. They're overly affectionate. The guy will often lead her by the shoulder, so he'll put his arm around her and guide her, or he'll grab her arm and sort of like gently steer her a certain way. There's actually certain guys who will take their hand and put it on the back of the woman's neck and just like steer her like she's a doll. They don't do it very aggressively, but there are certain guys who will just steer their partner by the neck. And it's like so bizarre to me. It's some sort of like cultural thing for sure. I definitely think that these sorts of gestures, like guiding your partner, moving your partner out of harm's way, or just keeping them close to you, steering them to the restaurant or destination, that's a sort of part of dating etiquette that might be a little bit more traditional, defaults to traditional gender roles in couples. For me, usually if I'm walking with my boyfriend, we're either holding hands or he has his arm around me. He does tend to guide me away from like bumpy roads, or if I'm on the outside of the sidewalk, he'll kind of gently shift me to the inside. Or if I'm on my phone and I'm like texting, he will grab me to stop me in case I walk into moving traffic. Or if we're shopping together and I want to veer into a store and impulse purchase something, he will also sort of grab my arm to keep me from going. I don't really see it as a overly offensive thing to me. I sort of see it as a part of being a considerate partner. And most of the time, he's just trying to make sure I'm okay because I'm so checked out when I'm with him. So I'm very grateful that my partner is always making sure that I'm safe and I'm okay. But of course, I have very different boundaries towards my partner versus other people. If there's a random guy who's grabbing my wrist, obviously I'm going to be very uncomfortable towards it. For certain people who have different experiences or certain traumatic experiences, you might not like the overly sudden physical contact as well. So like I mentioned earlier, context is key. So anyways, I hope this vlog tickled something in your brain about Korean drama wrist grabs. There's been a lot of discussion online whenever new K-drama fans jump into the fandom. A lot of people are usually shocked at seeing certain Korean drama tropes that come up all the time. The wrist grab, for example, is not something that's only unique to Korean dramas. It's also seen in Chinese dramas or certain Western scenes and dramas as well. I just decided to talk about Korean dramas today so I could also touch a bit on the cultural aspect. And anyways, if you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to like and let me know what you guys thought, and I'll see you guys in my next video very soon. Bye!